In the summer of 1965, the world of popular music tilted on its axis when Bob Dylan released a single unlike anything that had come before. 6 minutes long, powered by Al Kooper's swirling organ and Dylan's own sneering vocal delivery, Like a Rolling Stone was not a love song or a ballad of protest. It was a takedown, a poetic assault, a song that dripped with resentment yet somehow pulsed with freedom. Dylan had already been hailed as the voice of a generation.
You dress so fine through the bumps of dime in your prime. Then you.
A folk poet with a gift for putting the anxieties of the 60s into words, but Like a Rolling Stone was something new, and for many, something shocking. The obvious question it raised almost immediately was simple: who was it about? For decades, listeners, critics, and even Dylan's closest friends have wrestled with that question. Was it aimed at a real person, an allegory, or even Dylan himself? When Dylan has addressed it, his answers have been evasive, mocking, or suggestive of truths buried under layers of irony. Yet time has only deepened the fascination with the identity of Miss Lonely, the fallen protagonist who stands at the heart of the song. At first listen, the record presents itself as a merciless character sketch. Dylan doesn't sing to his subject so much as he spits at her, conjuring a vision of a woman who once moved in high society, dressed elegantly, tossed spare change to beggars from a place of smug comfort, and enjoyed the privileges of a charmed life. Now, though, the tables have turned. She is destitute, stripped of pride, dependent on others for meals, a stranger in a world that once been around her. Dylan seems to sneer at her fall from grace, reminding her in a taunting refrain, "How does it feel to be on your own with no direction home, like a complete unknown, like a rolling stone?" Yet as the verses unspool, the song becomes less straightforward cruelty and more a meditation on freedom, even joy. In her fall, the woman has been liberated from the trappings of her former existence. She is invisible now, Dylan tells her, with no secrets left to hide. And that state, terrifying as it may be, is also a form of release. Critics like Jan Wenner would later suggest that Dylan was describing not just humiliation, but the strange liberation that comes with losing everything, a stripping away of illusions until only raw existence remains. It is in this tension between mocking and compassion, derision and release, that the song's mystery lies. Was Dylan venting personal venom toward a specific woman in his life, or was he constructing a mythological figure who could stand in for anyone crushed by the hypocrisies of wealth and privilege? Dylan himself, when asked in 1965 at a press conference if he was deliberately tormenting the people in his songs, laughed and replied, "I want to needle them." The evasive humor suggests that the song wasn't a confession of literal biography so much as an artistic jab, but fans and observers could never resist the urge to connect Miss Lonely to flesh and blood figures. In the heady swirl of 1960s celebrity circles, one name that rose quickly in speculation was Edie Sedgwick, the incandescent actress and model tied to Andy Warhol's factory scene. Sedgwick embodied glamour and vulnerability in equal measure, and her entanglement with Warhol's world of decadent excess made her an easy candidate for the fallen princess Dylan portrayed in his lyrics. There were rumors that Sedgwick and Dylan had been briefly involved around the time he married Sarah Lowndes in secret, and Warhol himself claimed that his circle felt targeted by the song. Friends told him he was the diplomat on the chrome horse Dylan sang about, and Warhol bristled at the idea that Dylan's sneer might have been aimed partly at him, or at his treatment of Sedgwick. To Warhol's collaborator Paul Morrissey, Sedgwick had been infatuated with Dylan, only to be shocked when she discovered his marriage, and the song's bitterness to her must have felt personal. Yet not everyone agrees. Dylan biographer Michael Gray dismissed the Sedgwick connection, though he admitted that her ghost haunted Dylan's later record Blonde on Blonde. Art historian Thomas Crow took a different tack, suggesting that Dylan was watching Warhol's scene from the outside, seeing disaster looming and writing Like a Rolling Stone almost as a warning, not a direct personal jab. If Sedgwick was Miss Lonely, Dylan may not have been addressing her intimately, but rather responding to what she represented in a broader cultural collapse. The fragile lives of those swept up in fame, burned by the lights of the factory, and discarded once they were no longer useful. Other names have been floated: Joan Baez, Dylan's one-time companion and fellow folk star, who might have been wounded by his shift toward electric rock; Marianne Faithfull, who embodied the swinging 60s rise and fall; Bob Newirth, Dylan's friend and sometime scapegoat. The temptation to identify a face behind the mask of Miss Lonely has never gone away, yet Dylan scholars like Howard Soons have cautioned against reducing the song to gossip. The venom of Like a Rolling Stone, he argues, was not necessarily directed at one person, but at the phoniness Dylan perceived in an entire social class. To him, the song was a broadside against hypocrisy itself. The irony, as Souness points out, is that one of the most famous songs of an era defined by ideals of peace and harmony was itself an anthem of vengeance. The cast of characters surrounding Miss Lonely only deepens the enigma. There is Napoleon in rags, a figure who might represent Robert Johnson, the great bluesman whose haunted legend haunted Dylan himself. There is the mystery tramp, perhaps Blind Lemon Jefferson. There is the diplomat on the chrome horse, balancing a Siamese cat on his shoulder, an image so strange and specific it begged fans to decode it. Some saw Warhol and his entourage in these figures. Others, like Jean-Michel Buizard in a 2021 essay, argued that the entire song was an allegory not for a single woman, but for the blues itself. Buizard suggested that Miss Lonely was country blues personified, once sovereign in the American South, now abandoned as its musicians migrated north and turned the sound into something modern and electric. The diplomat in this reading is Muddy Waters, carrying his guitar like the Siamese cat, traveling by train to Chicago on the chrome horse, where he transformed the old blues into something new. In this allegorical reading, Dylan wasn't sneering at a woman at all, but at the tragic loss of a musical tradition that had first inspired him. The song then becomes both history and lament, a complex meditation disguised as a pop single. Yet there is another possibility, one that Dylan himself hinted at years later. After his motorcycle accident in 1966, Dylan reflected that when he used words like he and she in his songs, he was often talking about no one but himself. Some critics have suggested that Like a Rolling Stone gains its true poignancy only when heard as Dylan addressing himself. At that moment in 1965, he was a man caught between worlds. The folk revival audience that had crowned him their spokesman turned against him when he went electric, accusing him of betrayal. His old beliefs were falling away, his direction home uncertain. When he snarled, "How does it feel to be on your own, with no direction home, like a rolling stone?" he may have been directing the question at himself as much as at any imagined Miss Lonely. The resentment and compassion in the song then reflect his own conflicted state, his alienation from fans, and his recognition that losing everything, idols, myths, even a home base, might be liberating in itself. What makes the question of who the song is about so irresistible is not that it has a single answer, but that every answer feels both plausible and incomplete. Dylan confessed it was about a woman who had fallen from grace. He confessed it was about phonies. He confessed obliquely that it was about himself. Every confession opens another question. Every answer dodges into another riddle. Perhaps that is why the song endures, why it has been called the greatest rock song ever written. It does not give you a single truth, but forces you to confront the question of what it means to lose everything, to stand invisible and alone, to feel like a rolling stone.